Hello, everybody. Welcome. Welcome. And my name is Marzia Lanfranchi. I'm the Intelligence Director at Transformers Foundation. We are a not-for-profit representing the denim industry and its ideas for positive change. And today, we're going to talk about anti-greenwashing legislation, responsible marketing, and citizenship. And I'm super excited to have you joining us. But since we are right at the minute, so we're gonna give a minute more for everybody to join in the room. But and meanwhile, I would like to invite everybody that is already here to think about an instance or an episode of greenwashing that you've experienced or you've come across as a consumer or as a company that you really felt frustrated about. And I want you to think also about its consequences, whether there were any. In the denim sector, sadly, I can think about plenty. And some of these examples we've covered in our latest report that it's called Cotton, a case study in misinformation. And in this paper, we've basically covered how greenwashing is actually part of our bigger society misinformation disorder. And we gave it a definition that of course can be implemented, but in the paper, we talk about greenwashing as misinformation spread by private actors, namely corporations or marketeers, in the process of selling a product and who describe their products or services as more sustainable than the competition or another product. And I'm sure that, as I said, this definition can be further complemented, but you probably realize how this wicked mechanism of greenwashing encourages behaviors that actually are contrary to our ecological transition. And you probably understand why we do need to stop this, and otherwise you wouldn't be here today. And in the paper, which is 137 pages long, which it is a long paper, but it's because we have plenty of resources and ideas and takeaways or how to really stop this problem. But today I wanted to really go and talk you through with our guest experts about what are some further ideas that we can explore together. And so we've divided today's session to learn about anti-greenwashing legislation, responsible marketing, and citizenship in two parts, exactly for trying to unpack all these elements of our session. And the first part, we're gonna look into two case studies of brands greenwashing and companies greenwashing. And after, we're gonna go into a more open discussion. For technicals, I encourage you to, hi Mathieu, we're gonna come to you in a minute. And for technicals, we're encouraging you to put the questions in the Q&A box. We're going to address as many as possible at the end of our session, and feel free to use the chat for just exchanging comments and ideas. So without further ado, since Mathieu is already here with us, I want to welcome our first guest speaker, Mathieu Jahnich, if I get the pronunciation right. Yes, I practiced. So you're a responsible marketing expert, and also the reason why we brought you in today is because you're a very responsible citizen. Can you just, Can you just introduce briefly yourself a little bit more?
Yes, thank you, Marzia, for the introduction, and I'm very glad to be here today. Yeah, that would be a great moment. And I'm sure I will learn a lot from the other person here today. Yes, as you said, I'm a French consultant and researcher, and I help companies and organizations to respond to societal expectations through more responsible communications. And as a citizen, I try to analyze and to seize the jury, the ethical jury in France, when I think that companies are doing greenwashing.
Great.
And so,
yeah,
okay.
And I know that you've been really active in reporting contentious advertising to the French advertising standard jury that you call the JDP, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so today with you, we're going to look at two case studies. That one is a study that you filed, right? And the other one is a study that another company has filed to this French body. So let's start. And if you can share the first slide, please, Annie, so we can. So here we have an advertising from Adidas. My first question would be, how did you actually find this advert, and what was the problem with it?
So I found it on the billboards in the streets of my own town in the Paris urban region, just like any citizen, you see. And I thought that there are two problems with this ad. The first one is the claim used. You can see at the bottom of the ad, 100% iconic, 50% recycled. The claim 50% recycled is not clear enough. We don't know what is the real proportion of the shoe that is made from recycled material. Is it 50% of the whole shoe? Is it only the upper part? Is it only the part made of plastic? We don't know. And the second problem is the circular logo marked "End Plastic Waste" on the top right corner of the ad. It is true that the sneaker is partly made from plastic waste, but the sneaker itself is not recyclable. When discarded, it will add to the mass of plastic pollution. It's then forced to pretend that buying this product will help to end plastic waste.
So the main problem is that it's unclear attribution of recycling percentage, and that after life, then we don't know if it's going to be recycled and if it's recyclable. And so when can you talk me to the process? So when you find, I think I've been in a shop many times finding an ad that I was like, I'm really frustrated. This doesn't really go with the sustainability understanding that I have, but I don't know how to file a complaint. Can you talk me through the process of what you did actually to filing a complaint for these problems?
Yeah, in France, it's very easy. There's just a form on the website of the Advertising Ethics Jury, the GDP, that you have to fill in. So you have to declare your identity. You have to precise when and where you found the ad. It can be on the media or on the website, on YouTube, at the radio, wherever it is. Then you have to describe the ad, and you have to explain why you think it ignores the Sustainable Development Recommendation, which are the ethical rules that each and every ad has to follow. And after that, the company is informed that a complaint has been filed, and they have to explain themselves. And a meeting is organized to allow the members of the jury to ask questions to the complainant and to the company. And 2 or 3 weeks later, the jury publishes its opinion on its website, stating if the ad respects the deontological rules or not.
Right. And so what was the result of this process? Can you share it?
Yeah, in this case of Adidas, my complaint was well-founded. The jury concluded that this ad ignores the principles of clarity and proportionality of the Sustainable Development Recommendation.
And so if this is the ruling, and it's been, I think, published on their website, right? And but what are the consequences for a brand like Adidas that has been found guilty of greenwashing.
Yeah, the main consequence is that the opinion of the jury is published on its website. So when the breach of the rule is proven, like on this case, the jury asks the advertiser to stop using the claim or visual. And that's all. And often the opinion is published 2, 3, 4 weeks after the campaign. So it's already too late. So there are no fines also. So it's a kind of name and shame, but little shame because it's only on the website of the GDP and not on professional media or, well.
But the company needs to take down the advertising, at least for the jurisdiction of France. Am I understanding it right?
Yeah, they are supposed to put it off and not to use it again. And if the visual is still on their website, they have to withdraw it from the website.
And is this only like applying for France then, or would it apply to other jurisdictions that you know?
No, it's a regulation specific to France.
Right.
So the brand can do whatever she wants in the other countries.
Right. And my understanding is that we were speaking about this, is that this advert though was recognized from a marketing standpoint as an outstanding advertising campaign, right?
Yes, they received a prize for the best brand campaign of the year by the magazine Strategy, which is the well-known advertising and marketing magazine in France. So 1 week before, the same magazine published an article saying that Adidas was falling into greenwashing. So that's a bit of inconsistent for the magazine.
So, but it's interesting because we say that there's little consequences. However, I found you through this case, and many other sustainability people in this space are seeing like your role as a citizen to like really push awareness around greenwashing. So it might be slow in terms of consequences, but I can see that some media maybe pick it up from what it's from the finding from the jury, and maybe we can address it as you know, this little space that we have here. These little few people that are interested in greenwashing. I'm guessing there's a way of using these jury ruling, right?
Yeah, I think that the brand doesn't like to be called by the GDP and receiving complaint about their ads. And they are, when I'm face to face to the brands, they also have the agencies, the media, sometimes an avocat. And so they spend a lot of money and time to prove that they are not doing greenwashing. So they don't like receiving those kind of news.
It's a matter of reputation. Maybe we can go quickly. We have only 5 minutes for the next case study, because I really wanted to look at something that is not within our fashion space. And if you can move to the second case. Mathieu, can you talk us through this other case and how was this, how this complaint was filed, and what was the problem?
So this is a website of Castelli, a French firm selling microfiltered water fountains. And on the website, as you can see, the company stated that the carbon impact of the water fountains is 88% lower than for a plastic bottle. And the National Federation of Bottled Water didn't like this comparison and argued that the number of 88% was exaggerated. And so the jury had to read the report of the scientific study that compared the impact carbon of water fountain and plastic bottle. And there are two results. The first result is that the potential reduction generated by choosing Castelli is between 66 and 73% per liter, and not 88%. And it appears also that the comparison in the study only concerns one of the fountains sold by the brand, whereas the advertising claim refers to all of the models. So finally, the jury concluded that the claim ignored the principle of truthfulness of the Sustainable Development Recommendation. And as a result, the company had to withdraw the claim from its website. And if they want to communicate about the result of this study in the future, they will have to be more precise.
Yeah, and I think in our paper, we touched upon making unverified comparisons, and as well as focusing on a single aspect of a product life cycle, like water or pesticides in the case of cotton, to give consumer the perception that your product is more sustainable based on one single comparison, one single aspect. And you added these also the technical issue with this advert. I think it's super interesting to look at this from the fashion perspective, because we see plenty of B2B and B2C marketing based on these savings that are not actually accurate.
Yes, and what is interesting about this, it's not an ad that was broadcasted in the media. It's just a content published on the website. Right. And so it's interesting to see that the jury in France can force a company to withdraw a claim from the website.
And since we've seen, Mathieu, since we've seen little consequences for now, do you find, are you gonna still keep doing this work? Do you find it useful?
Yes, because, well, first thing, I believe that the self-regulation system in France should be improved and straightened. We should have a really independent authority and with stronger control of messages before the dissemination, and with real financial sanction for those who fall into greenwashing. But we have to deal with the system currently in place. And I believe that filing complaints is a means for me to show that greenwashing is a reality, and to underline that many marketers and communicants don't know the ethical rules. They don't understand that some people can react badly to their claims, and they don't understand that greenwashing is an obstacle to ecological transition. Yeah. That's why I will continue to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's fundamental, the work that you're doing. And I hope that I'm residing here in Barcelona. I'm hoping that also the Spanish government will have something similar, and I'm looking into it. And just adding on to this, to conclude, what do you think can be done to strengthen your work?
It would be to share and comment my posts on LinkedIn when I discuss the jury's opinions, because the more the audience grows, the more the pressure will be stronger on companies and agencies. And via social media, together, we could make the name and shame much stronger in France. So that would be helpful.
Well, that seems quite doable from the LinkedIn side of things, and hopefully I can understand and translate it into English. But thank you so much, Mathieu. I know that you have an upcoming release of an article about greenwashing and looking at further case studies. So if everybody can watch this space, we'll probably share it as soon as it's public. Yeah. And but now I'm so excited. Some of you have commented on the legislation side of things, etc. So we're gonna welcome all the other experts that we invited today. And I'm super excited to start the second part of our session. So great, Lavinia, Cecilia, Hilary, thank you for coming in. I'm gonna just start with a really brief round of introductions. Lavinia, starting from you, can you tell us who you are? For the ones who don't know.
Yes, of course. Yes, for the ones who don't know, obviously. Hello, everybody. I'm very honored to be with you here. My name is Lavinia. I'm the Corporate Responsibility Manager of Armed Angels, and Armed Angels is an eco and fair fashion brand from Germany. And we are on the market since 15 years. And well, it was a pretty wild ride in terms of implementing social and ecological requirements in our supply chains, but also fact-checking our sustainable marketing.
Great, Lavinia. And I know there's a comment about here in the chat that it may also be that individuals responsible for making claims don't understand the science behind data. Yes, it's true. The intent sometimes is good, but we cannot avoid actually working on this issue. So on this, Hilary, can you please introduce yourself, and good morning, calling from the other side of the world.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon. I'm Hilary Jackman. I am in Washington, D.C. I'm a government affairs consultant here, and I'm also the founder of PoliticallyInFashion, which is a community for all those in the fashion industry, designers, manufacturers, lawyers, reporters, and importantly, individuals and consumers to learn about and engage on legislative and regulatory issues impacting the fashion and retail space. So obviously, greenwashing and green claims is a hot topic here in terms of the umbrella of sustainability, and looking to see what a new administration and new Congress are doing with these issues. So thank you for having me here today.
Thank you for being here and adding the US perspective. Cecilia, who are you? For the ones who don't know, probably they've heard a lot about you during the past few months. But,
yeah, legend in my own lunchtime. So my name is Cecilia Parker Aranha. I'm a Director of Consumer Protection at the UK Competition and Markets Authority, and I've been running our investigation into environmental claims, misleading environmental claims. We've recently, just as part of that, published new guidance for businesses in the UK, which is aimed at bringing greenwashing to an end.
Great, great. So all anti-greenwashers here. So thank you for your work. And just a warm-up question I want to start with. Consumers are certainly concerned about greenwashing, I believe, I hope. But how much of a threat to society is greenwashing, and why? From 1 to 100, if you can give it a number. Let's start with Hilary from the US. Yeah,
that's a tough one. I'm not much of a numbers person, so it's hard for me to quantify, but I would certainly put it over the 50 mark. I think, the danger is in the immediate sense, purchasing products that are not what you think they are, right? And consumers more and more want to align their values with their purchasing power. And I think also the concern is the longer term, because the more you see terms thrown around and you start to see they don't really have any meaning, there's no there, it's going to hit a point where consumers are going to be like, forget it. I'm not even going to pay attention to these claims, and we lose all the momentum and all the work that's been done to date. People are just going to stop caring and walk away from it. So,
yeah, absolutely. And Cecilia, from your perspective.
I mean, I think Hilary's captured it. I'm also going to duck the numbers question because I think there are other people better placed to talk about the scale of the threat. But to me, it seems as though the root of environmental problems, most environmental problems, is consumption, whether that's climate change, loss of biodiversity, pollution. And as citizens, we all need to radically think how much and what we consume. And greenwashing is really preventing us from doing that effectively. It's making us think we're making better choices for the environment than we actually are. As Hilary said, it's damaging the trust that we have in the claims that are being made. It's also stifling innovation for those businesses that are trying to do the right thing. And of course, by investing in looking green rather than being green, it's hampering our progress towards tackling the climate crisis.
Absolutely. Lavinia?
Well, I'm not going to make any assumptions during a panel on greenwashing, but personally, I believe that it's going to be more than 50%, because if we keep on working in this business model, I mean, we are already in a growth dilemma, and nobody of us brands right now is going to reach the 1.5 target if we do believe that consumerism is our only option to improve the health of our planet. So to me, it's a very big problem.
And I love that we have such a broad perspective. It's UK, US, Germany, France with you, Mathieu, and you all represent different stakeholders. So Mathieu, I want to go over to you from the communication and citizenship side of things.
Yeah, I would say 80 out of 100. So I'm choosing a number. And because I think that, as it was said before, greenwashing is misleading the public on the reality of the efforts to be made to tackle climate change and all the other issues. And it contributes to the loss of confidence in the discourse of companies. And it represents an unfair commercial practice towards companies that are genuinely committed to the transition. Yeah. So it's a huge problem, yes.
And what I would add to this, as Transformers Foundation, what we see is also in the B2B space, it's very hard for companies to discern which suppliers are doing what, because of the greenwashing doesn't happen only at consumers level. So on this, I want to go into the subject of legislation and what legislation is coming to fight greenwashing and how will legislation impact sustainability communication. And I wanted to start with Cecilia. You've just released in the UK the Green Claims Code, if I'm getting the name right. And I think we can link it over in the chat for anybody that wants to check it out. But can you explain a little bit more about what is this guide? What is that you put in place in the UK?
First of all, back in 2020, the CMA committed to using the powers that it already had to support the transition to a low carbon economy. That was the first time we'd committed to doing that in our annual plan. And we quickly identified greenwashing as one of the areas that we should focus on to begin with. And so the guide isn't introducing any new legal requirements. This is all based on existing consumer protection law that already prevents businesses from making misleading claims. But what we've done with this guidance is we've tried to make clear how we will approach misleading environmental claims, how we'll approach greenwashing, so that businesses really understand what's expected of them under existing law. I think there were a couple of reasons for doing that. One was that we do know that there are businesses out there that are trying to get it right and that are making honest mistakes, if I can put it that way. We know that there are a lot of businesses as well who are actually doing innovative things, and we're starting to hear a bit more about green hushing. So businesses that are so scared about telling their customers what they're doing in the environmental sphere because they're worried about being caught out with greenwashing, that they say nothing at all. So we wanted to use the guidance to try and drive cross-sector change, to put businesses on notice that they needed to clean up their act, and also to give businesses confidence to tell people about what they're doing without fear of getting it wrong.
Right. So it's sort of so if I were a business, I can look into this guidance and make sure that I don't get anything off or that is misleading the consumers. And I see that you also have a quiz for consumers to just like play kind of.
Yeah, so we have a long set of guidance which has got all the detail in it. It's built around 6 principles, I say, drawn from existing consumer protection law, and with the idea that those principles will help guide businesses through. The long guidance has lots of questions for businesses to ask themselves so that they can really test whether or not what they're doing is greenwashing. And then we also have a short form of the guidance for people that need to understand quickly what we're talking about. We have our special campaign website that's got, as you say, the quiz on it, and it's got links to videos and that kind of thing. And we just published last week also some tips for consumers to try and help them, if not spot greenwashing, at least be a bit more confident when they're buying eco products.
Cecilia, is it too much to ask for just to talk us through the principles? I remember claims must be truthful and accurate, like this.
Yeah, so we've got 6 principles, and I'm going to try and remember them off the top of my head now. So firstly, claims need to be truthful and accurate. They have to be clear and unambiguous. You can't omit or hide important information. Any comparisons that you make either to the products that other people are producing or to previous versions of your own products have to be fair, and they have to be based on a like-for-like comparison. you have to have consideration for the whole life cycle of the product. That doesn't mean to say we expect everybody to go out and do life cycle assessments, at least not at the moment. But it does mean that if you're making a claim about a specific part of the life cycle of a product, you have to think about whether that will mislead consumers more generally. And I think Mathieu's example there of 50% recycled, but without having regard to where the raw materials are coming from and what will happen when you dispose of it is an example of that. And then the final one, probably the most important one, is you have to have evidence for everything that you claim.
Right. Yeah. And just one last thing on this. How do you think that this potential will impact sustainability communications, at least for UK companies?
Well, so we're already being told that it is shifting the way businesses are behaving. Some of our stakeholders are involved in the marketing side of things. They're involved in the data side of things, and we're told by them that they are getting more approaches by businesses who want to review what they're doing and are trying to get things right. So I'm hoping that over the next period, where we're telling people about this guidance, and then as we begin to take enforcement action against businesses who are greenwashing, we'll start to see better quality and more honest communications about sustainability by businesses. And I'm hoping that that will then make it easier for citizens to find the information they need to make sustainable purchases and actually start to shift that behavior that we talked about.
Interesting. And well, that's the scenario in the UK, and I think it's really good that you're doing that, because I think it gives also the opportunity for other countries to think about their green guides or green claim guides, however you want to call it. And on this, Hilary, I know that you've co-signed the Green Guide letter to the Federal Trade Commission back in, May 2021, this year. And you've received a response actually from the Federal Trade Commission. What are you, and you asked for a revision of the green claims. So how, can you talk us a little bit about what you've done and how, what was the response of the Federal Trade Commission in the US?
Sure, thank you. Yeah, so in the US, we have the Green Guides, and that is put forward by the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, which is a federal agency. And they have been in existence since the early 90s and have been periodically updated. And basically it provides some principles for companies to adhere to make sure that their claims, their green claims are truthful, are responsible. So back in spring, we actually spearheaded the creation of this letter to the FTC. And we're joined by, initially by Amindi, the fashion brand Amindi, and worked with other stakeholders, fashion companies, thought leaders, think tanks, sent a letter to the FTC asking them to conduct a review of these guides. The guides have not been updated since 2012. And we feel that a lot has changed in these past 9 years, both in terms of technology, right? Sort of how do you access information, and consumers' desire to know these issues, that they want to find out what these claims are and sort of hold companies accountable. And like I said earlier, to really use the power of their purse and to voice their values. So in July of this year, the FTC did announce that they will be conducting a review of these guides. It was in July that they announced actually their plan for a number of things that will be reviewed over the next 10 years. So we were very pleased to see that this is one of the first things that the FTC will be doing, that this review will start in 2022. The last time they did this review, it was a multi-year process, which is fine, but we wanted to make sure that this review gets started now. There's no time to waste here. And our letter did not take a position in terms of specific points in the guides. There are about a dozen points in the current guides. But what we were calling on is for a review to start now. We do think it's interesting to note what's not included in the guides. Specifically, the guides do not touch on the word sustainability or organic or natural. And in fact, when they conducted this review in 2012, they affirmatively said they did not have enough information on these issues to put forward regulations here. So I think that'll be really interesting to watch, to see how people engage on these words. I think organic has a little bit more constructs around it, at least here in the US, because the US Department of Agriculture currently regulates the term organic in use for food. But we don't have any guardrails on the term for sustainability. So perhaps we will start to see some conversation around that going forward.
Yeah, and ambiguous terminology like eco-friendly, green, I'm guessing as well. And so how does it currently work if you see a misleading claim in the US right now?
So it's interesting, actually, at the federal level, there is not a private right of action, meaning that an individual citizen cannot bring a case about this. It is up to the FTC to bring a claim. But at the state level, it's really interesting to follow what's happening there. A lot of cities and states are starting to go much further than the green guides, or to have regulations that have a little bit more teeth in them, actually. California being a prime example right now, they recently enacted a law having to do with when you can use the chasing arrow symbols for recyclable. And so that will really set a high standard, and often say in the US, you know, as goes California, there goes the rest of the country. Because if one state, especially a large state like California, has a really strict regulation, it's unlikely that companies will then have one standard for California and another standard for the other 49 states. They will probably rise to the California level or the New York level, or whatever state is sort of leading the way on these issues. But in terms of how you can engage as a citizen, because there's not a private right of action, what I encourage people to do is to reach out to your representative in Congress or your local representative at the state and city level. In Congress, they have oversight over the Federal Trade Commission, right? So they're the ones who can sort of hold the FTC accountable. So I encourage folks to reach out to your representative and say, hey, these are things that are important to me. Make sure you raise this with the FTC as the issue becomes more important, and as your oversight role as a congressperson. And if you don't know who your congressperson is, you can go to congress.gov and type in your address, and it will tell you who your representative is.
That's great. That's such great advice. And just one little last point that I wanted to touch with you is what I found really interesting in your letter. It was backed by brands like Amendi, especially that actually put us in touch with you. Why do brands need more, like how do brands respond to more regulation? Why are these brands backing these, what's their interest actually backing the more tighter regulation?
Sure, well, I think brands who are doing the right thing, they want to make sure that there's an even playing field then. You know, it's not easy, as I say, not easy being green, right? And you put a lot of effort into it. Why would you want another company who's skirting the issue, skirting regulations to get the advantage here? So I think they recognize that there is a role for government here to set an even playing field, to bring everyone to the table, and to not view regulation as a big scary issue. You know, this is something you can work with. One of the things we're really encouraging folks to do as the FTC begins this review is to weigh in with them. There will be a public comment process, all sorts of things, you know, down the road over the next couple of years, to make sure that, you know, the fashion and retail space has a seat at the table on these conversations, because regulation is coming, and you know, don't put your head in the sand, engage, have these conversations right away. And when the review happened 9 years ago, of the 340 unique comments, only 2 were from fashion and retail space. So I hope that folks will really engage going forward.
Yeah, interesting. And actually this leads really nicely onto the brands and responsible marketing side of our conversation. And I want to touch actually with Lavinia here. You've worked in the CSR space for quite a long time, and you work closely with your marketing department to really get these sustainability claims right. And I know that you still are working with them to develop some kind of process in place to avoid greenwashing. And can you share us some of the challenges that you face when communicating sustainability as a brand?
Yes, I would love to do that. So I think although sustainability might be, part of or integrated into like the business strategy of Armed Angels or any other organization or brand, people are afraid of its complexity, not only with regard to communication, to the whole topic, right? Because it's interconnected to every business decision we make. And this might end up in a communication dilemma. And at least for Armed Angels, I can tell you that to me and also all Armed Angels employees nowadays, it is clear that we need to name the things as they are and not talk around the subject. And I believe we all need to explain how we do our general business as it is. So at Armed Angels, it started with changing the whole narrative a couple of years ago. So we do not talk about our factories anymore. We talk about, because we do not own these factories, we talk about our business partners. We do not tell our community that we are paying fair wages because only the employees here in Cologne at the brand itself are paid wages, We talk about our pricing strategy and we talk about labor costs and not wages, and or what we do as a brand to lever or to have a lever to raise the wages at factory level. And for example, we do not communicate anymore that recycled polyester saves any PET bottle from the landfill, because at Armed Angels we know that our secondary raw material comes from industrialized countries like Japan and Taiwan, and they have implemented recycling structures like in Germany. So eventually it opens up new recycling streams, but we are not saving any single bottle from the landfill. Although we also, I think, all agree that a bottle-to-bottle approach would be the correct way to go, right? And I think then one of the biggest challenges, but also mysteries, is obviously the negative and or positive impact we are generating with our business activity. So what numbers are correct? What facts are actual facts or only sole assumptions? And then I think finally, as I worked in consultancy before, I know that most brands, especially SMEs, do not have a proper communication strategy, and they only concentrate on classical marketing and communicating to one target group, which is the end consumer, with the goal of selling more and more and more and more. But when you want to have substance as a brand, I think we also need to take the data. We need to evaluate the data from our supply chains, and then we need to prepare communication for the different stakeholder levels. It's a lot of work, but it's worth it and it's very necessary.
And so, Lavinia, what are some of the efforts that you put in place to overcome all of these challenges? Because you've touched on a few, but I know that so one contributor of our report said, it was a technical contributor, was saying like, this is what I've communicated, all these details to my marketing team. And then it was translated very simplified, and then it fell under like misleading information. So like, what are some of the efforts that you put in place?
Well, it's a fight. It's an everyday fight, I can tell you. But I try a mix of strict fact-checking methodologies and also motivational talking, because people are afraid. Communication departments are afraid of eventually communicating the wrong facts, right? Or translating the fact in a wrong way. And I try to put everybody who's involved in communication and marketing on the table. I try to motivate them and I try to explain them that it's not a rocket science, because everybody who went to university or everybody who has worked scientifically knows how this works. We all did it, at least my colleagues at Armed Angels, So with regard to correct communication and greenwashing, for example, we organized a workshop with specialists We set up a greenwashing guideline, and I can tell you this has worked wonders. So some of my colleagues are actually becoming greenwashing experts now and are fact-checking better than me. And also what we did recently, we actually added new roles and responsibilities. So now, because my job actually is like operative, you know, I should really be and solely work in the supply chain, but you know, this communication dilemma is such a big problem that I'm communicating or cooperating or co-working with the marketing department a lot. But now we have a role for impact communications and business data analyst, and I think this is also very helpful and necessary.
Yeah. And so you've increased, I can tell like that you've increased the data literacy within your teams as well through, and I know that you've also asked a couple of questions to us as denim experts when you were communicating denim. So that for me was a really big success in terms of reaching out to technical experts when you really are struggling as a brand. And so Mathieu, I want to go back to you. Do you think that all these legislations that we've talked about would actually result into fear of committing mistakes that could restrict businesses that are making genuine efforts to communicate their sustainability efforts? And what is the role of marketing departments in ensuring that they do not greenwash? So that two big questions. We have probably got 5 minutes before, but before we go into the other questions of the panel or the audience, but it's a very interesting point, I think.
Yeah, like Cecilia and Lavinia said, in France too, companies are clearly afraid of being criticized on social media. They are afraid of being tagged as greenwashers. A lot of them are doing great things to reduce their environmental or social impacts, but they refuse or they don't know how to communicate about it. And that's a pity. And the role of the marketing department or the agencies or consultants, when we are speaking of small companies, is to find the right balance in communications, to define clear and proportionated claims, to check their consistency with the CSR strategy and with the ethical rules. They can also identify risks and put what I call safety nets in place, like scientific proof, testimony, third-party declarations, to ensure that if the claim or the communication raise questions, they will have answer to propose, or the answers are already there published on the website. And so it's really difficult because you have to be creative, inspiring, and to answer the questions that engaged citizens or influencers will certainly ask. So I think there are people at the interface between the sustainability development world and the communication marketing world that should help all those companies to find the right tone when it's about communicating.
Great, thank you. I think I would like to go on to conclude this panel and then go into the audience questions, which I see that are really super interesting. So around for all of you, this is, so imagine that you were really empowered, you are empowered to institute one bold action in commercial society intended to eliminate greenwashing forever. What would that be? I want to start with Cecilia.
My personal view is that there should be a mandatory disclosure of environmental impact on all products, regardless of whether that's a positive or negative impact. I think right now a lot of businesses get away with greenwashing because they simply don't have to explain what a bad impact they are having on the planet. At the moment, the CMA is actually calling for inputs from businesses, consumers, and others about what changes are needed to consumer protection law to better help the UK meet net zero and other sustainability goals. And that includes proposals or suggestions for whether we should consider things like mandating provision of information, reducing obsolescence, and possibly even tackling certain practices that lead to overconsumption.
And is this is a feedback open to citizens as
Feedback's
well?
Feedback's open until the 10th of November. So I can get the link for that and share it in the chat.
That would be great, I think, for a lot of people tuning in. Hilary, over to you. What would that one bold action be?
That's a tough question. So I think I'm going to piggyback off of Cecilia's comment, actually, and just say that to build on what she's suggesting, to make sure that the disclosures or the information that's shared is in a way that's meaningful to consumers. I see too often we get too bogged down in the technicalities, really detailed information, which is great for scientists and people, practitioners who are really in the weeds. But I think sometimes that can get lost on your consumer, and to really think about what is it that's impactful when you are going to buy X, right? And to not compare apples to oranges, to make things apples to apples, and to put it in clear terms that everyone can understand.
Yes, I would impose the display of sustainability scorecards on all advertisement and packaging, with, of course, strict specifications. So I think that will ensure transparency about the environmental and social impacts of products and services. And it will be easier for consumers to really compare products and services. We are seeing those kind of scorecards on some products in France, like a washing machine, for example, but it's not enough. We should have that on each and every product and service.
Cards. And I think what you've mentioned, additionally to what Cecilia mentioned, aside from only the environmental impact, is also the social impact. It's an element that needs to be added. And Lavinia, concluding on you, what's that one bold action to eliminate greenwashing forever?
Yeah, I was also like, I want to jump on the social impact and the eventual value added in the supply chain. But apart from that, I can unfortunately not be so optimistic, because I don't see this in the near future, because our business models are just not giving us the opportunity to eliminate greenwashing. Because if the sole business strategy is to sell more, the whole marketing will be around, you know, trying to communicate the best out of the product.
No positive side.
I request a change in business models, and then, you know, we can eventually tackle also that problem.
Great. Thank you, everybody. So we have so many different perspectives here, and I want to go, we have 8 minutes because left to the audience question. There's so many interesting ones. So I'm going to start with Sarah's one. Do you believe, this is for Mathieu, do you believe that cooperation with other national authorities, such as CMA in the UK, Italian Advertising Authority, etc., and so on, could help overcoming sovereignty issues and enforceability problems? Is this happening? You're muted.
I didn't understand the end of the question. Maybe if I read it, that would be easier for me.
Yeah. And Cecilia, probably you can also...
Yeah. I was going to say I can jump in. So, I mean, I think cooperation is already happening to an extent. So within Europe, we have the Consumer Protection Cooperation Network that allows consumer protection authorities to work together on this. Sadly, the UK is no longer a member of that. But internationally, we have the International Consumer Protection and Enforcement Network, which aims to foster that collaboration between international consumer authorities. And actually, greenwashing is one of the priorities of that network at the moment. So we are engaging with authorities around the world on how we can tackle some of these common issues.
Yeah, and it's great because I've heard also from your team members, there's some mechanism in place in New Zealand, and you're in touch with some other countries outside of Europe and in very many different geographies. Mathieu, do you want to add on this?
Just that it's a real issue in France here too, so that the authority in charge of regulating the ads are really open to other stakeholders like NGOs. They say that they are doing that, but it's not really the case. They are choosing very well the NGOs with which they are talking to, and they should be more open, and that will help them to understand why people are reacting that way or that way when they see an ad.
And so moving on to another question, when should we be able to use the word sustainable for a fashion product, or we should just stop these completely? I know, Cecilia, you've touched on ambiguous terms, Hilary as well, Lavinia, you probably have strong opinions about these too. So who wants to take this one? Hilary?
I'll take a stab at it. I think, yeah, the word sustainability has been used so much. I think we may actually be at the tipping point for its effectiveness. At least here in the US, I mean, every ad you see, something is sustainable. Well, clearly not everything is sustainable. We wouldn't be in the situation we're in right now. So either we need to put some guardrails on the term, or maybe start to use different terms like transparency or traceability or things like that have a more concrete definition, because sustainability, I think, is already starting to lose its effectiveness as a word here in the US.
There's so many smart questions and we have 4 minutes. It's really hard to choose. So I'm gonna try to move on to the next questions, because I think that most of you would agree with Hilary's. And when I move to Charles' question, is there a way to make anti-greenwashing legislation advantageous for a large number of businesses? So when it's proposed, the supporter outnumber the opponents? Any ideas here? Cecilia, maybe?
I mean, I guess for me, I don't understand why it wouldn't be a priority for most businesses. The reality is I was going to say in the middle of a climate crisis. I fear we're approaching the end of the climate crisis unless we act fast. And actually, the greenwashing is posing an existential threat to all businesses. We know that greenwashing actually as a long-term strategy isn't a particularly effective one. We know that it's hampering those that are trying to do the right thing. So I suppose my hope is that that any resistance to new legislation in this space, or to new provisions in this space, will be a matter of trying to persuade businesses that they can still operate within the bounds of the legislation. But I don't think there's a silver bullet to the problem.
Great, thank you, Cecilia. And one last question, because I want to save all of these, and I'm hoping that we can answer them offline or in our when we post this recording. There's this question about consumer voices. Would you say that consumer voices and pressure can be a powerful tool to bring about change, or is it something that can't make a difference? Where are some instances when consumer pressure was translated into actionable change by brands or government? So in the realm of greenwashing. Lavinia, you want to take this one?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have an example for greenwashing exactly, but at least here in Germany, it actually was the civil society who went on the streets and was requesting a supply chain law. And although, the draft of the supply chain law, we definitely need to discuss the depth of it, but it actually happened. So I do believe that civil society and the end consumer has the power if we take it and go to the streets.
Yeah, and Hilary was saying, take it to your representative,
Exactly.
Write to them. And Mathieu, you wanted to add something on this?
Yeah, in France, an application like Yuka is very effective, and brands are responding to the red, orange, or green labels that appears on the ad, so on the app. So through the use of these apps, the consumers can force companies to change the way of conceiving products and of delivering them.
Great. Can you put the name of the app on the chat? I think.
Yeah, it's Yuka.
Yuka. Okay. Well, we are at the hour, so I want to finish on time and to let you off to doing your very important work. And I thank you so much, Lavinia, Mathieu, Hilary, and Cecilia for being with us. I think we've been successful. If anybody here learned a little bit more about greenwashing and is going to take action, whether it is a business, a consumer, a citizen. And yeah, I recommend downloading our report on a case study on misinformation, because it has plenty of tools, as we discussed, to fight misinformation, which the greenwashing falls under. And otherwise, thank you so much and have a great day, everybody. Thanks for all the attendees. It was very good to see you engage until the end.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.